Okay, so today is June 1st, and I figured it was time to do a garden tour video. Tomorrow is our official last average frost date, but the apps that I look at today, they're telling us we're at 24 or 23 degrees. What do we got over here? Yeah, it's a little hotter out here than that. Okay, here we have our lemongrass planted in a pot to create a little microclimate. And we have Chinese elm seeds absolutely everywhere. That's good. All right, let's start with the old kitchen garden. Right here we have two varieties of red onions that still need to be transplanted. They'll be transplanted in among other things as we go. Things are getting quite overgrown around our beds here. These are our Irish cobbler potatoes, and they are coming up quite nicely. My daughter's daffodils are coming up nicely as well, and there's even barely visible in here some of her irises. The shallots, now that they are properly covered and safe from the cats, are coming up nicely. And here we have the walking onions that I planted in the fall, also coming up nicely. Our pink rose bush is looking quite lush. This area over here, we planted the red thumb potatoes, and in the process I found some onions and stuff like that, and they got shoved into some of the blocks over here in between the mint. On this side here, the rest of the red thumb potatoes got planted because there was too many to fit in the skinny bed. And oh, looks like we need to do some watering today. We have peppers over here. That onion grew itself, I don't know where it came from. And then we have thyme. These are sweet chocolate peppers. And then some leftover shallots got shoved in here. We have our transplants that are left to go in, and we've got them under this broken old market tent to protect them from the heat. These two trays are spoon tomatoes. I've actually given some away because we had a pretty much 100% germination rate. And the same thing with the Roma tomatoes. They really need to be transplanted. The two got started from seed at the same time. We've got some seedlings over here. There's chamomile, a different type of thyme. What have we got here? This is two kinds of winter squash, two kinds of cucumber. None of them have come up. 100% germination on 4 different kinds of peppers. These are the little finger eggplant. That's the last spoon tomato. These are strawberries. Horsefly almost bit me. Strawberries we started from seed. A couple more trays of gourds, and that have, and these are the Hullis seed pumpkins over here. 0% germination. We've got a couple of melons coming up here. No watermelon. These are winter squash. Nothing has come up. Winter squash and a gourd. What have we got here? Another winter squash, only 2 have come up. None of the Boston marrow. We've got the honeyboat delicata over here, and only 1 little gem. We have, what's over here? The Hullis pumpkin. This is Lady Godiva. 2 of them have germinated. Nothing on the Styrian. So with 2 types of melons over here coming up. The spearmint is not doing very well. We have a single oregano. And we have gourds over here, and the only classic eggplant that has survived. Got some leftover Black Beauty tomatoes. The rest have been transplanted. I've been giving some away. I need to give away the rest. We don't have room. And then absolutely massive Romas that need to go in the ground over here. It's like a jungle with these guys. This area got cleaned up of some dead trees and expanding trees that were not productive in a good way. This is our tulip patch. You can see that some trees are coming up as well. We've got sort of a gate over here. And this is where our Liberty apple has been planted. And I can't see my screen right now, so I'm hoping you can see that. We have some mostly dead lilacs here. They got drowned out when we had flooding last year. But I'm happy to say the grapes survived. So the grapes, there's 2 grape plants over here and they're doing rather well this year. This is where breadseed poppies were planted. It is so full of weeds, but I think we actually do have poppies coming up. Okay, and these blocks along the chain link fence, this first one over here is a zucca melon, and it already blossomed once. We've got more flowers coming up. So far they only look like male flowers, but it's very early, so that's fine. This one here is an African drum gourd. And then we have 2, I forget what you are. What are you guys? Caveman's Club. So 2 Caveman's Club growing on the chain link fence. In this bed, we've got peas growing quite nicely. The onions that are just at this end were onions I found while I was cleaning out the bed and weeding it and stuff. We have also lots of little bok choy Hitotiny sprouts coming up, and an absolute avalanche of Chinese elm seeds. That's going to be a problem. And in here we have this Czechoslovakian variety of lettuce planted, and there's some seedlings coming up. I'm really looking forward to fresh peas. Then at the very end, there is also a single shallot from last year that I found. So it's ready, or it's replanted. In this bed, we had planted 6 crowns of purple asparagus. This would be their 3rd year, but with last year's flooding, like this was all underwater over here, so the crowns would have been flooded out quite badly. I think we lost 2 of them. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4 that showed up at all, so that set back the asparagus quite a bit. But the strawberries came back. These were planted last year. They survived the winter. It's 4 of them, and they're looking pretty good. In this bed, we've got the sunchokes, and it's full of weeds, but I can't remember what sunchokes look like, so I'm not daring to weed it unless I'm absolutely sure. I think, maybe, possibly, these are sunchokes. One thing about the heat we've been having is we have not been able to keep up on the mowing. A couple of days ago I did a bit of weed whacking around the beds, and that's the most I've been able to do. This bed here is carrots. While planting them, we found some, it turned out to be garlic cloves. We replanted them, they're doing well. It's taken forever for the carrots to get to the stage where we can actually see them, but they're still so fine we cannot properly weed this bed without pulling up carrots in the process. In this bed, I planted the Tom Thumb popcorn, and we actually have some coming up. So that's nice. There's some onions, red onions at the end there that we found while preparing the bed. And in this bed, it's way too hot for them, but we have spinach. We planted them long ago. They just did not do well, probably because it was just too hot right from the start. And over here, last year we had the Aunt Molly's ground cherry in here, and I've left this area to see if they will reseed themselves. And it's possible they have, but until I pull up the dandelions, we won't be able to tell. We're going to be fighting dandelions a lot this year. So over here we've got our garlic that was planted in the fall, and unfortunately very few of them survived the winter. So we have some garlic, 3 different varieties, but nowhere near as many would normally meet our needs. On this side, it's the purple corn, Montana Murado, and we actually do have corn coming up. This bed needs to be watered. Oh, and then we have this area. This is going to be the squash patch. Everywhere that you can see pairs of sticks, that's where there was a squash planted last year. There's cardboard underneath and like an opening where the squash plants were. And so what we need to do is bring in soil and build up mounds where the sticks are. And that's where we're going to transplant what squash transplants we have that have managed to survive. These bags have our purple Peruvian fingerling potatoes. We were intending to do all our potatoes in bags like this, but we just didn't have enough bags. Those are all the bags we have left over there. So we will plant other things in them when we can. And over here, protected by the boards from the wind, these are our, which ones are these? These are the indigo blue chocolate tomatoes. They are bordered by yellow bulbing onions. I forget the specific variety. These onions here we found while we were working on the bed. And then we planted on one side over here is Merlin beets. And then over here we planted gold ball turnips. And I'm hoping that the onions will help protect the turnips from whatever ate them when we tried to grow them last year. On this side we have Black Beauty tomatoes. And we could only plant half of the seedlings that we had because there was just so many of them. And so I'm giving away seedlings of those as well. And again, we have onions along here. And on the other side, we have planted, protected by this board, long skinny board over here. Oh, got to move that one back. Uzbek golden carrots. And they are protected by the board until they germinate. And then I'll take the boards off. And then again, onions bordering to protect things. In this bed I was intending to plant the peppers, but we really need to get those Roma tomatoes in the ground, so we're going to get them in here, as many as we can. We have about 60 of them. I think we'll be lucky if we can fit 30 of them in here. And in the high raised bed we've got bush beans planted, yellow custard on one side, the green Lewis bean on the other, and then I threw some remaining yellow bulbing onions at each end. And then we have this disaster. This is where we planted potatoes and melons potatoes and melons last year. And this is where we're supposed to be building permanent raised beds, not high raised beds like this, about half this height, but also with a permanent trellis tunnel. And we just haven't gotten to it yet. This bed also had the potatoes, and last year this is where we actually removed the sod. We removed the sod in this area. We had summer squash in here, winter squash in here, we had Tom Thumb popcorn in here, we had a sweet corn in here, with bush beans at their bases to provide some nitrogen, and a hulless variety of pumpkins in here. And we need to get our butts in gear and reclaim this area before it all ends up like the rest of this stuff over here. This old trellis tunnel needs to be dismantled so we can reuse the wire mesh for the permanent tunnels. But we're using this bed one more time. We've got the Crespo squash planted in here, and they handled the transplant fairly well. They are recovering and growing, and they get quite huge, and that's why I planted them far out like this. This should be the last year we plant anything in this spot for any kind of vegetable. Hopefully the next time we plant something here, it will be some kind of a fruit tree. Here we have the first of the raspberries that we're going to be building up a larger raspberry patch. These are a red variety. Eventually we want to have a gold variety and a purple variety. And they're going to be going in these areas where previously we'd grown beans and peas, which is really hard to tell right now with how things are overgrown. This is as far as we're going to go, because on the other side, if you can see, there's a thing in the fence there. that marks where a buried telephone line is. And so the telephone line extends all the way down that way. So we need to make sure to keep a lane open so we're not planting over the telephone line. And over here at the end, oh yeah, the tomato cages are to protect from deer, and deer are why this high bush cranberry has a sawhorse over it. There's another one over here, and here we have our last 2 surviving sea buckthorn. Out of 5 of them, we have 2 left. And finally, we have all of our silver buffalo berry. And out of all of these, there is 1 that did not survive. And it did not survive because I accidentally pulled it up when I was weeding. So all around here is our silver buffalo berry, which will eventually be like a privacy hedge on this end. And where this pile of wood chips are, we have to keep this lane open. The idea being that we can drive through here. And finally, we have our crabapple trees. This one at the end here needs to be taken down. The original tree died long ago, and the remains are just not doing well. This one also needs to be taken down. It's quite diseased. This one here is a good, healthy apple tree so far. It has tasty apples. They're very tiny, but they taste good. Here's a dead one. The suckers need to be cut away. Another dead one. This one we might be able to save. I'm not entirely sure. We'll see. It's got a lot of dead branches in there. This one needs to go though. It's got signs of fungal disease. And then of course there's that one that's already dead. And yeah, June 1st, and this is our garden so far. And we have a lot of work to do. I have to keep reminding myself that normally we wouldn't be able to do any of the planting and transplanting until like 2 weeks from now. So we actually have a head start this year. It just feels like I'm so far behind.